You're picking some interesting picks, but you've got to solidify your top spot before you really do that.
And we talked about Starhorn Royal Club a lot at the start of the previous season. We said, okay, they're doing very well because they don't have Name. But what we learned, especially towards the business end of the season, is that any points that you didn't manage to get earlier in the season, that much harder to pick them up at the end of the season when teams are really trying for different things, whether it's seeding, whether it's to try and get into playoffs, avoid relegations. When the pressure's on, points are that much harder to pick up. So even though you might feel tempted to hide strategies or try different things, you'll really pay for it at the end of the season.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are, of course, well and truly into champion select here. Maokai and Cassiopeia have been removed on the side of RNG, and Alistair Callista on the side of LGD. And we'll see what RNG decide to remove. And there are a few names that are sort of glaring out to me at the moment, Papa Smithy, and that is the fact that the jungle has not been touched.
There's been a couple of games like this where the jungle ball has become through intact. Maybe just the theory that no one champion is the strongest, and there's maybe 4 or 5 junglers that are really up there at the top tier of play. The thing that jumps out to me is that Cassiopeia's banned. Now LeBlanc.
Where's the Azir?
You have to force the Azir ban. I think you have to ban Azir. You know that Xiaohu will pick it up. Strongest on those Shurima champions. Azir really fits the meta. I think that needs to be the ban here, unless Godvi, someone with a very wide champion pool, I believe, played up to close to his 20th competitive champion in recent history. So unless he has a pocket pick against that Azir, or is happy to opt into the Kassadin versus Azir matchup, I guess is something we need to consider. Azir's probably going to be the ban, but if not, Kassadin's the only true answer available in picks and bans.
Well, I mean, you say that, but Xiaohu is probably one of our best Xerath players in the LPL at the moment, and we've seen Xerath being played into Azir with relative success as well. And if you're thinking about getting Xerath into the hands of anyone, it's Xiaohu.
I would say he's stronger on the Azir side of the matchup, and Azir was more likely to be the first pick, so Godvi on the Xerath doesn't really make too much sense to me in terms of his playstyle, especially. Might have just tried to go onto Orianna and try and force something in that particular situation. Ori's available, a lot of strong picks available. In fact, the whole jungle pool available. So maybe you don't even go for a jungle pick. You know you'll get something strong, unless you really put a lot of priority onto the likes of Rek'Sai or Gragas.
Well, it is looking at Nah here. Let Me, of course, played a whole lot of that champion, wants to find some comfort here on the Rift, but Acorn, he can just go 3 games of Hecarim in a row if he likes, and you can see he's got a big smile on his face. He might be thinking about it.
His options are basically to pick Hecarim into what is not a great matchup for the Hecarim, especially if a bit of Snowball comes through and we see the likes of the Frozen Mallet or the Black Cleaver come through onto the Nah. Or maybe he'll just return to his trusty Rumble. We've already seen some very strong Rumble play today. Rumble would be a fine pickup against Nah. Of course, it's not the best laning matchup, but you're picking for comp rather than picking for lane. You're already mousing over the Sivir, so if you take the Sivir and pick up the Rumble, not always that many great options to deal with it in team fights. But no need to commit to a top laner just yet. The Sivir priority will continue. It's one of Imp's strongest champions, and Sivir Ori, for LGD in particular, are power picks.
These are amazing picks here for LGD. If they want to give them an opportunity to get into this LPL split, this is the way to do it. And of course, the fact that Godvi's Orianna got through to the second round of picks is absolutely amazing. MLXG can, of course, pick up whatever he wants there in the jungle. We have spoken about that already. And Lei considering his jungle option as well. And we'll see whether it is going to be the likes of Thresh being taken here, because Lei does love that champion. It is going to be locked away in MLXG. This is the champion that MLXG has performed on recently. When we're talking about MLXG in good games, it's on the Rek'Sai.
They're definitely picking pick power with the likes of Thresh and Rek'Sai for the early game ganking. Now you have CC in the bot lane, you have a strong ganking jungler. Nara is no slouch, can very quickly cause a lot of pressure to come out. So they're picking power. They don't want to let Orianna get through a very quiet laning phase into the late game. It just causes as much pressure as possible for a couple of items come through for that mid laner.
Yeah, and TBQ thinking of going back to the Sejuani here. He has seen a lot of his success on that champion. It is going to be locked away. Imp going to be taking that Morgana, of course, probably passing that one over to Fan there in the bottom lane, or Acorn could possibly play it up top. Of course, we've seen Morgana enter many, many lanes in the LPL. Whoosh wastes no time, though. That is one of the quickest Jinx lock-ins I've ever seen.
We just haven't seen a lot of Jinx. Only Name is brought out so far in the LPL from my recollection and was on the losing side. They need to choose a mid laner. We talked a little bit about Xiaohu's Lulu in the pre-game. Has shown some carry performance on this, but it's a very passive pick against Orianna. Even with that jungle Rek'Sai, okay, you have the opportunity for the Flash Unburrow into Wild Growth double knockup, but in terms of damage, you're pretty much centered around Jinx putting out the big damage in a fight unless Let Me can get far enough ahead to actually build the Black Cleaver from top lane.
Yeah, that does look a little bit damageless. Of course, there are sort of champions that are known for doing decent damage in the early stages of the game. Of course, Rek'Sai, she's fantastic as far as that skirmishing is concerned. Let Me is a bully on the Gnar, but you're exactly right. Come the late game, sort of the only reliable damage is going to be Whoosh, and that is a lot of pressure on this player.
I mean, you say there's a lot of pressure on him to perform in general. Look at this enemy team. Last pick is the cannon from Akon. Too late for any sort of
on to the Rift, ladies and gentlemen, with MLXG wandering up the lane. RNG taking on LGD for our third series of the evening. And we'll see whether RNG can make it off to a decent start this game because, as you were saying, Papa Smithy, a difficult comp to pull off. And LGD looked like, okay, we just want to press our R buttons at the right times and we're going to be okay.
And it's one of those things where even if one of them doesn't work, if there's a flank ultimate coming through from Akon, if it's Sejuani getting the Glacial Prison in, there's multiple different engage options available. So execution heavy in a game like this is such a risk to take. You can look at team fights, you can imagine what a team fight looks like for RNG, but so can LGD, and it's definitely the LGD of week 3 or 4 of the LPL, if you remember, where they love to run these multiple CC heavy comps.
Yeah, and I have a feeling we've seen almost exactly the same comp, maybe sub out an Orianna for a Lissandra instead, and it's basically what we were getting from LGD in the middle of the split. And
look, it was effective in some ways. Sometimes they would pick it into Janna and just hate their lives, but they last picked the cannon this time and surprised our RNG to some degree. They don't really have any sort of peel against a cannon in terms of a Monsoon or the Gragas ultimate to really opt into. Maybe just kind of hating the fact that they went for that Rek'Sai over Gragas because they just don't have that option, and Whoosh is looking pretty precarious on this Jinx.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for Whoosh to really make this one work. An early QSS might be coming out from this AD carry here on the bottom side of the map. MLXG starting off on the Grump, not going to donate any experience over to the bottom lane, but I want to talk about this top lane because Kennen and especially Mini Gnar, sort of the quintessential lane bullies. But now they're going against each other. Does this sort of neutralize the lane?
Absolutely. These are both no resource, auto-attack focused champions in the laning phase. They're very similar. I mean, we remember the couple of schools of thoughts when Gnar was really at the top of the meta. People were talking about Annie as a counter pick for Burst. These champions basically do the same thing. Maybe Teemo will be a bit more akin to what what Gnar's up to, but they're very, very similar. So it should be able to match pressure. In terms of early item pickups, they've gone for Doran Blade over the Longsword. So definitely the more offensive, or the person looking to be more offensive, is Akon with that more lane-centric purchase.
Yeah, actually, nice death sentence to land here on the bottom side as Lay didn't want to get into turret range. Imp throws out a boomerang. Nice, just the tip landing onto Whoosh there, putting him down to about half health. This bottom lane, I mean, it's not necessarily what you expect to happen in this lane because Sivir probably should be receiving a little bit more pressure, but is it sort of after the first AD items come in that this lane really starts to turn around?
Yeah, Patient Time and I were talking about this. We've seen a lot of Jinx versus Sivir, and Jinx has kind of simply looked as a lane counter to Sivir. In a lot of ways, I agree, specifically after BF Sword, the trades get better and better for Jinx. The options that Sivir does have, though, is that her all-in is better than Jinx's. She does have the option to use the ultimate, try and just use the fact there's no escape.
MLXG's found TBQ, forced to use that flash. The flash from MLXG, though, he's got the red buff, doesn't even worry about it, knows that he can secure the kill, and first blood for MLXG. This is what this guy does on this champion.
And this is not something you frequently see, but it's a very smart move from MLXG. You know that Sejuani is going to be so low in the jungle.
Well, Whoosh is going to fall down in the bottom lane here at the same time. Imp managing to pick up that kill. And very interesting things happening all across the board. And Fan, last turret shot is going to come through. Lay's going to flash after him for the auto attack. Secures it. And 80 carry 1v1s and support 1v1s in the bottom lane.
Yeah, Lay managed to make Whoosh look good. Whoosh actually gets an assist out of all of that. We missed, of course, the play coming into it before. MXG looking for a lane gank, finding TBQ.
Yeah, he was actually burrowed there, so TBQ probably surprising him just a little bit. The Tremor Sense senses for MLXG not working out quite so well, but he's going to make it out of there just fine.
But, I mean, the big thing to consider here, Atlas, is that Lulu was able to push in Orianna. Orianna needs to wait till level 7 to 9 to actually have any sort of instant wave clear. Emma actually smartly understood that, realized there was so much space for him to aggressively invade the enemy jungle, found the low health Piggy and dispatched with him quickly.
Yeah, and we've spoken about this. The fact that Sejuani goes down incredibly low in her jungle, and this is one of the first times that we've seen that really capitalized on.
And it wasn't able to be both top and mid pushed in, so there still was an element of a risk. I still believe that Cannon had a better lane position than Let Me in that particular situation. But the overall result, Xiaohu pushes GodV under turret, MLXG so much free time and space, and it would have actually been, with the Whimsy, Xiaohu would have been first to react. So they try and play around their champion smartly in this situation, and suddenly, big advantage to MLXG in the jungle battle.
Yeah, and you've already mentioned this is a team comp that's sort of very cerebral in its play style, and already they're showing intelligent moves.
They need to do this. They need to get a big advantage because there's just so many different ways to deal with Whoosh in the late game. And you kind of jokingly talked about the early QSS. The big reason that Whoosh can't do that is there's not enough damage on the other members to go for anything other than the most efficient AD purchases possible.
Yeah, well, so far starting not so strongly in that regard, picking up the extra Doran's Blade just to make sure he's got some lane pressure. He's going to put him behind a little bit as far as that first BF sword item is concerned, but if you can afford him any pressure in this lane, he's definitely going to be doing it because the Jinx that falls behind, especially when there's so much pressure, going to be difficult. Nice use of those rockets to make sure that Imp doesn't want to put on too much pressure here in this bottom side, and GodV taking a lot of harass here from Xiaohu, who's just relentless with those glitter lances.
Yeah, we talked about the fact that it's a defensive lane choice. You can still be very aggressive. The big difference between Lu and other champs, you don't really have kill pressure. Not taking Ignite, you're actually taking the Summoner Spell Cleanse, as defensive as Summoner Spell as you can. No offensive utility in the cleanse. Imp takes a lot of autos, but just going to be a situation where Lei's trying to buy a bit of lane presence for Whoosh.
Yeah, Lei really playing this one as best he possibly can to try and give Whoosh some time to farm this one out. But you can see it is working very effectively. He's died that one time, but he's still ahead in the farm.
The trades have really worked out for Whoosh. Imp's tried some all-in trades, obviously successfully since he's picked up the kill onto Whoosh already. All-in trades are fine. It's just those poke trades that are so poor for Imp. Even if he hits the Q and a couple of autos, you know that once you switch out of the machine gun form into rocket form, with all that extra range, Whoosh is always going to get multiple extra auto attacks and really stick the trades against him.
Yeah, TBQ actually going to discover MLXG on the Dragon here. Did manage to get it down to about half health, a little bit under there as TBQ does clear out the vision. So no sneaky dragons to be had this time from RNG. It was worth a shot.
CS values very similar across lanes. Only big advantage between Jinx and the Sivir. 10 CS is probably what we expect in this matchup, given how well it started off. And mostly that's been, again, Lei's pressure. He was really smart to pick up that kill.
Oh, yeah.
Under turret. The Ignite coming through, and also was just on time to get the assist onto Whoosh. And that critically got a couple of extra potions in the inventory and helps with these trades that come through from Sivir.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Actually deciding to forego the Sightstone and picks up the mobility boots instead. Probably wanting to move around this lane. And when you're talking about the likes of Gamty, you're thinking Sync Dream. Of course, no longer on this side. Still in the LPL, ladies and gentlemen, just not quite on his, with his friends. There, of course, Tail and Sync Dream were one of my most favorite bottom lanes. But Sync Dream-esque, wanting to roam around the map and create some pressure.
Causing as much pressure as possible is not the worst idea. MLXG already went and took out the Sejuani, now trying to counter jungle as well. 3 members there.
Oh, GodV picks it up, though. I don't know how that happened. Was that a command attack that stole a red buff?
I believe it was just the command attack. The distance was already used. That's actually a really big win coming through for GodV. It won't really be that relevant in the 1v1 matchup. Just doesn't have the attack range to actually auto-attack Lulu multiple times, but you deny resources away from MLXG.
Yeah, that's a massive amount of experience as well to go over to this Orianna, and denying that from MLXG, like you mentioned, that is the big deal here. So, of course, still keeping that money and experience on their side of the map.
And quite simply, the auto-attacks, when he's trying to proc the minions for wave clear, does that extra little bit of damage. That's probably enough to actually get the instant clear with the QW. So if that gives him more lane control against a Lulu matchup that he's been struggling in, I mean, red buff not usually a big thing to consider in this matchup, but it could actually help GodV in more ways than one.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Of course, Clockwork Wind-Up, a fantastic auto-attack steroid there as well, and Xiaohu has been putting a lot of pressure onto GodV here. But you can see he's probably pretty keen just to sit back and farm.
So far, so good. And in the bot lane, CS lead actually dwindled here. I don't know if Imp has just been in lane longer. BF Sword has been purchased by Whoosh, but 70 to 75 is very competitive CS between these two when there was a 10 CS advantage not long ago.
Yeah, still 7 CS to clean up here, so is going to be ahead just a little bit is Whoosh, but you're exactly right. The fact that Imp was falling behind quite considerably is a big deal, and double longsword here for Imp. So going for that Ghostblade Sivir build that we've been seeing rising in popularity.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be there, but might just have been a case of getting power. But I think you're probably apt in that particular situation. I was expecting more Brutalizer pickups on the likes of Graves when he's Sin, just because when you finish the Infinity Edge, you don't get the same burst in power as before. Now that's lost the extra 5% critical strike when you finish the ability. Going for, say, a pickaxe or a BF sword into Brutalizer gives you a lot of physical damage when you have spells like the Graves Q or the Boomerang Blade as Imp is able to put out. So going to look for a bit of poke, and you itemize in that Avarice Blade that no Sivir player goes without.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, of course. Loving to grab an Avarice Blade if you can. Whoosh able to clear out these minions very effectively now, and you can see these trades working out quite well for the Jinx now that the BF Sword is in the back pocket. And it seems like the extra Doran's Blade purchase worked quite well here for Whoosh, making sure that he could keep up the lane pressure.
The bridging purchase, as you put it, seems to have done just fine. The purchase in the top lane, Akon is doing something we haven't seen on Rumble players in quite a while. He's actually going to rush the Rylai's. You didn't think he had enough CC before. He's going to have plenty of it now.
Yeah, this cannon sort of with the perma-slow build. I need to grab that Rylai's. And of course, the build path is fantastic for Cannon at the same time. I mean, you want to find that extra tankiness just so that the first sort of dragon fight that you can use your ultimate in, I mean, you're not often able to complete the Zhonya's Hourglass, so you may as well be able to survive to stun people in that Slicing Maelstrom.
And one of the big factors is that before you get enough bolts on your ultimate to stun up a team, there are situations you'll stun a couple of members, but you just won't be able to actually get the 5-man CC that's possible at level 16. But you will get guaranteed slows coming through from Rylai. So it's just basically guaranteed teamfight CC before you hit level 16 and have the prerequisite amount of bolts. And if you're using Kennen in a peel situation, Kennen Vayne, for example, was a really popular duo in Season 2. It's even more CC for an enemy gap-closing champion, melee champion.
Oh, and Jinx steals it away with a zap. MLXG is going to get caught there by the Dark Binding, but can take a bevy of different options in order to get out. And I thought it was MLXG going to steal that one away, but nope. Whoosh, locking it down with a zap.
It's even worse than that because Akon actually committed to using the teleport. Let me stay in lane. Is going to push this wave and probably get a lot of turret damage. And it looks like he's going to even take this turret. And Kennen doesn't even have a dragon to show for that.
Yeah, nothing gained from that teleport whatsoever. But it is going to be the ult used by Imp here on the bottom side. Lei just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And Whoosh tried to offer some damage there, but not sure what Lei was trying to do.
He was trying to look for a bit of brush control. Remember, they've had lane control for the majority of this laning phase. This time standing in a ward. Smart pathing from TBQ, called down by his AD carry and support lane. They pick up a free kill.
Yeah, and Cinderhulk already completed now by TBQ. That kill is going to really help what was a generally falling behind Sejuani, but you're exactly right. Just mentioning to me right there the fact that the Warrior enchantment was completed by MLXG and a Sidestone.
Surprised to see. I mean, there's not a lot of synergy between those two items. Of
No.
course, going to have a bit of presence to go and kill the Piggy, but this is obviously a very early game-centric build. It probably makes sense given that they have this earlier power spike, as we've talked about. The most power early is to pick up the Warrior and get in the face of the Sejuani. She doesn't get any tankiness apart from the items she buys. Maybe this is just extending what we've said. First 25 minutes, Warrior's probably going to be the strongest enchant option. Just try and use that window. But this basically closes the door on Rek'Sai being super relevant in the late game.
Well, I mean, MLXG might have been considering the fact that, yeah, their team doesn't have a whole lot of extra damage. So pick up the Black Cleaver, pick up the Warrior enchantment, give yourself some damage. I mean, Rek'Sai does do a whole lot of work if you manage to get on top of someone.
Cinderhulk, sorry, I mean, Kindle Gem into a Ruby Crystal does kind of scream out
Yeah.
the Black Cleaver. That is the build path of that item. You're not pigeonholed into it. You could just build a Spectre's Cowl, for example, and go into the Spirit Visage, but this is still a very real possibility, and it's another champion that maybe will be a split push threat. If you look down at the items, now have been building purely magic resist. We expect that Kennen will probably itemize in an Abyssal Scepter at some point, suddenly having to deal with a Black Cleaver. would be a big hole in itemization that might be able to be abused later in the game.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, MLXG might even turn it into a Locket of the Iron Solari if he wants to. Could be a possibility here, but bit of a battle for the next red buff here. Of course, the third that's going to spawn. Godby got the second, but it looks like TBQ is going to be able to smite his away. Preyseeker not going to find it there, and TBQ, second red buff of the game at 14.5 minutes.
He does pick up that item. We'll still keep scaling. He's the one with the Cinderhulk, so into the late game, he will get 25% extra bonus statistics and even damage, because of course the Northern Winds has that damage component that scales off health. Sejuani's at weak at this point. Choosing Cinderhulk over the Warrior in chat means that this is a very, very strong Rek'Sai coming through in this particular jungle matchup. But if you don't make anything happen, you just get outscaled, and that's why Cinderhulk's the safer choice. I mean, Condi even ups to the Cinderhulk on Lee Sin, which I think is a bridge too far. But with Rek'Sai, you have both options, and he's elected for this Warrior in chat.
Yeah, 78 CS now to 57 as far as that jungle is concerned. Of course, MLXG opting to sit and farm for quite some time. We'll see whether that is going to bite him. You said that probably needs to do as much work as he possibly can in the early stages, but maybe just wants to hit some item timings before he can be really relevant.
I'm waiting to see what he purchases. If it's the Phage, then it's probably going to be the more offensive choice. Doesn't really have gold for either item, so at the moment, we're not going to know either way. Of course, has that flexible option to look down. And given this game, I think you have to go for the Aegis, Atlas. I think you have to go for the Locket, but then why do you buy the Warrior?
Well, it's true. And I mean, I guess maybe thinking, I got First Blood, managed to kill TBQ in the jungle, I can snowball off this because he picked up the Warrior very early on, but perhaps it just didn't quite work.
And look, I'm a fan of Warrior in certain scenarios. It's just, as a melee champion, which is what Rek'Sai is, she's going to dive into a fight between Kennen CC, Sejuani CC, Orianna CC, and I mean, Morgana's going to at some point channel the Soul Shackles. There's so much extra damage she's going to have to walk through that how many auto attacks are you realistically going to get off as Rek'Sai in a late game team fight? 2, 3, maybe at max? Why not go for the extra health? Someone like Clearlove's already shown that if you stack Giant's Belts, get enough health, you will still do relevant base damages as Rek'Sai. You have so much uncleansable CC every few seconds when you can go between the burrowed and unburrowed stage. This is not a Warrior game to me.
No, it doesn't really look like it, but we'll see whether MLXG can make it work. Of course, we haven't really seen too much of the Warrior plus Black Cleaver Rek'Sai, and it might make him a bit of an assassin towards the later stages.
In a split push situation, maybe, but not picking up a Locket basically means that RNG can't fight for Dragon.
Yeah, and you probably want to be able to do that, of course. LGD are looking to try and set some vision up. They're all collecting around their blue, which isn't quite up just yet. Let Me and Acorn with teleports at the ready towards this top side, as Let Me just going to bounce further away. Knows that not too many people visible on this map, and he wants to keep himself safe.
Lots of gold has been put into getting exclusive vision around the Dragon area, but now LGD, 2 members, the jungle support duo, looking to try and answer that vision. There's a pink ward cleared out. There's still aggressive green and defensive pink wards around the area. Both teams are at least warding to try and take out this second Dragon.
Yeah, MLXG just going to help Whoosh out, taking down that Krug, understanding that this Jinx really needs to get going. Of course, 2 items, generally what you want to have in your back pocket before you're really starting to do a whole lot of work on that champion. At the moment, Berserker's Greaves and an Infinity Edge double Dorans is going to be doing fine. You probably want a Static Shiv or that Phantom Dancer if you really want to get some work done.
Speaking of item purchases, Lu's just gone back, bought CDR boots, and now the Needle Sludge Rod, so they're going to be very close to 40% CDR, if not already obtaining it, and enough to build up whoever's in the front line. I have a sneaky suspicion, now that the Locket's complete, but with the Warrior enchant especially, build up MLXG, go for the double knock-up between the Unburrow and the Wild Growth, and just empower him, at least at this stage, to be able to negate most of the damage and do what should be considerable damage in the front line.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. At this stage of the game, that Warrior enchant's still very relevant. Not a whole lot of armor built up by anyone. In fact, it's just a Ninja Tabe. That's the only thing that's in there. RNG have started off this Dragon. The second for them is Whoosh with some rockets over the back of the pit. No one in position from LGD, and this is going to go down for free. And after RNG steal away the first, they're even looking to try and get amongst this blue buff. It went to someone towards the right-hand side. I believe that might have been Imp that grabbed himself. No, it wasn't.
Teleport comes through from Akon. Usually the master teleport, but there's also the ultimate used by Sivir.
Yeah, on the hunt was pop, but that was a beautiful use of the Glitter Lance in order to slow the entire team of LGD down. So Free Dragon not able to steal away the blue buff.
An uncharacteristically poor teleport coming through. Usually we're praising Akon for his teleport usage, but teleported after the Dragon objective had gone down, after blue had been contested for, and then just easy disengage with the Glitter Lance. Misses out on the getting considerable turret damage and trying to equalize the turret score in the top lane. In fact, LGD don't have a single turret to their name.
Yeah, unable to take anything here, of course. Mid lane outer turret was taken down just recently, but the bottom lane outer still up. Whoosh looking to try and put some pressure there. Let me being very aggressive.
He knew he had a lot of cavalry coming through. MLXG and RNG in general are using their power windows smartly. Can they grow a big enough one to justify the fact that they've got an early game comp and even went so far as to invest in an early game jungle item? All in the early game, it looks good for a time, but if you ever lose that big fight, you just worry that from there you can never really get back into a game.
Yeah, and the fact that Godby is on his Orianna here as well has turned multiple games on his own with his fantastic shockwave use. And look, you give Orianna 2 items at any point, and it's a horrible thing to have to deal with.
Must have enough gold for the Nizar Droid. Yes, does purchase it and a pink ward. Let me just controlling the wave in top. Happy to keep the freeze going. 3 turrets down and no real damage done to their turrets here. RNG, objective-wise, flawless game from them. 3 turrets to 0, 2 dragons to 0.
Yeah, really looking good, and spoken many times that this comp is going to get harder and harder to use, but are they far enough ahead? I mean, 4,000 gold, nothing to scoff at, especially with sort of, it's only about these objectives. It's the only place that this gold is coming from. Is it going to be enough for this RNG lineup to get through and take a victory here?
I think they've hit their part times. I think they've done what they need to do, but they haven't really gotten anything that convinces me that there isn't a time when LGD will outscale. They haven't broken the base. Not that that was a realistic goal from 21 minutes, but I mean, there's no lane that's ahead more than it should be. There's 20 CS advantage between Jinx and Sivir. That's to be expected as this matchup goes more and more in Jinx's advantage after the BF sword is completed. Competitive and slightly ahead in other lanes. They've taken the dragons and turrets that they've absolutely picked to do. It's just a question of can they parlay that in the next 10 minutes towards getting those big win conditions. Things like the 3rd and 4th dragon, things like a Baron, things like breaking the base. These are all super necessary because how many games have we seen where teams pick scaling comps and this got overtaken, the base broken? Teleports in though. This is a lot of aggression.
Yeah, let me all the way up here. Oh, Fan dodges out of the way of the Super Mega Death Rocket, but Zhao who picks it up with a nice Glitter Lance, actually flashing over the wall there. RNG looking to make a massive move, and Letme just teleporting in exactly the right spot.
Akon not having teleport does pick up a turret in top to answer, but if they can take an inner turret, it's definitely a great trade for RNG. These are the aggressive moves they need to be making. They need to be on the front foot, because as we've mentioned so many times, this game will tip at a point.
It most certainly will. Giant's Belt now completed for MLXG as well, and you mentioned he did pick up the Locket of the Iron Solari. I'm a little bit disappointed. Would have liked to have seen a Black Cleaver, but not happening just yet. We'll see whether MLXG does fit it into the build path somewhere, but I have to think it will be the likes of Arandu and Zoman coming through next. And that's going to be a very tanky Rek'Sai, regardless of the fact that the Warrior Enchantment is there. Maybe that Warrior going to help do a whole lot of extra damage here to Imp, mostly in these team fights.
And the big question is, will this be an option moving into the next patch? Because Cinderhog is going to see continued nerfs, I think, as we go forward. He sees a nerf on 5.9, probably scheduled for a couple more tweaks as we move forward. I hope there is a scenario where you can choose between Cinderhulk and Warrior on champions like Rek'Sai, who both have their advantages and disadvantages when you pick up those items. I feel like on 5.8, Cinderhulk's still the correct choice. But if you make Warrior work, if you force enough fights, if the enemy opts into engagements against you when you have this Warrior enchant and gets surprised by your damage, it can be a valid choice. The reason why I say that RNG haven't hit one of these tipping points that really builds them towards a late game victory is that LGD just haven't fought, and that's probably quite smart because at some point, not fighting and then showing up with a Sejuani with 2 or 3 health items is a different complete situation for RNG.
Yeah, and TBQ, of course, does have boots too in the Ninja Tub. He does also have a Sightstone in his back pocket as well. Synergizes nicely with the Cinderhulk. And I think as soon as Godby picks up his Rabadon's Death Cap, or potentially the Luden's Echo if he wants to go that way, then LGD just say, okay, well, we've got the most devastating shockwave that we're going to have this game, and let's utilize it.
Cannon's not interested whatsoever in going for a Zhonya's Hourglass, just stacking magic resist, not building for lane whatsoever. In fact, building for mostly disregarding this Lulu damage and building up Orianna and Sejuani's damage. If Cannon gets into the middle of a fight with the Abyssal Scepter aura running, it's been the Luden's Echo second. We're talking intense burst damage from Orianna. And setting up GodV to carry on Orianna, that's a winning strategy for LGD.
Yeah, you're right. And this is the 2-item spike here for Orianna. Maybe not quite as fantastic as far as the utility is concerned when you pick up the Luden's Echo instead of the Rabbidan's Deathcap. Shield's not going to be quite as strong, but man, you can clear waves so quickly. You can see those little purple bolts going everywhere. MLXG looking to put position around this dragon, and RNG, they need to watch out for this next fight.
Okay, so we're waiting to see if it's contested. Fans poked out really big.
Yeah, beautiful 3-man ultimate there from TBQ, though, but couldn't really start the fight. Imp pops the ult, but the Glitter Lance again for the disengage. LGD might need to get out of here because they've used a lot of their ultimates.
And the big factor, Acorn channeling his teleport, cancelled by the Gnar ultimate from Letme, so not available to contest. Letme didn't have a teleport of his own, so did his job. And suddenly, the Cannon ultimate that's built for team fights will not be present.
Yeah, Dragon getting a little bit aggressive onto Whoosh there as MLXG making his way in towards a flanking maneuver. LGD taking a lot of damage from this Dragon, but it's going down very, very low. Xiaohu trying to steal it, but TBQ steady hands on the smite, and LGD pick up their first Dragon of the game.
So Acorn walks down, seeds the inner turret. They're going to try and push down the mid turret, completely out of position RNG. So mid turret for outer turret's a possibility. No, they just back away. The ultra safe choice chosen by this team, actually prioritizing a first Dragon over their top turret. I think that makes some semblance of sense. You might think, okay, but the gold trade and the vision.
Whoosh, though, uses the heal to try and survive, but GodV, his first shockwave, a pretty good one.
Absolutely. That's Rookie tier. We saw Rookie do similar things, getting the kill on Mystic, that won IG the game against World Elite on Friday. MLXG trying to clear a bit of vision. One of the reasons why I say that it's important for LGD to pick up a Dragon is that it forces this game to go later. Of course, the 5th Dragon is now going to be later in the game if RNG monopolize the next 2. Later in the game is when LGD want to fight, and now the game's been forced to go at least 6 minutes later for a realistic win condition for RNG, because this team needs 5th Dragon to really get rolling.
Yeah, although I guess you've got a little bit more siege power with the long range of Jinx, but you're right, there's not going to be a whole lot that they can do, especially in a team fight, without the aid of something more, as Xiaohu's going to find Fan, takes off half of his health bar, but Imp and GodV standing on top of a ward, getting baited just a little bit here by Xiaohu.
Letme continues his push. In all of this, the thing that's kind of lost, that's kind of surprising to me, is that Acorn's literally built for team fights the whole way through. He has not built for lane whatsoever. Remember, he's laning against a physical damage champion in Gnar, and has built Abyssal Scepter and Rylai's Crystal Scepter, and of course, Hyper does a lot of percentage health damage, and Merc Treads. Like, he hasn't built any semblance of armor. He's built completely for fights and stayed very comfortable in the matchup, which just shows the general strength of Cannon as a laning champion, and the LGD's just looking to lose lane or fall behind in lanes, but be ready for that team fight phase. I talked about 35 minutes. I have a sneaking suspicion the next team fight, whether it's in 2 minutes or 7 minutes, is going to go more and more LGD's way.
Yeah, and GodV almost level 16, almost level 3 Shockwave at the same time. Blasting one now picked up as well. And Orianna just scales more and more as this game goes on. And we put a Rabbidan's Deathcap on top of this Luden's, and as well as the Athene's Unholy Grail that completely escaped me for some reason. Then this Orianna damage is going to be out of control.
You're talking about levels. Level 16 achieved by Acorn, been picking up waves wherever he goes.
Yeah, lots of stuns.
So that's guaranteed stuns for the whole team. Into some CC afterwards. The slows from the Rylai's will also be a very strong situation. I mean, we're talking permanent CC. We're completely discounting the fact that Sejuani is going to throw the Glacial Prison into the wombo of the Shockwave. You're going to have to be so careful. So you could say it's execution focused by LGD, but one of these members will get an AoE stun down, and if the other cooldowns are up at the same time, the burst damage is going to be huge.
Well, if we're talking about RNG recognizing what they're up against here, we've got double QSS, and you would have expected that to come from anyone other than Lei, but Lei's got one.
I think QSS is the way forward. Banshee Veil taken onto Na. I guess Rek'Sai's going to accept her fate, just going for the locket and health. But it's going to need to be a purchase even onto Xiaohu, but he's got cleanse, so basically everyone is good to go in terms of CC.
Yeah, everyone can get rid of one. So Acorn goes in, pops all of the respective cleanses, and then you've got TBQ throws out his ult, you've got Fan to come in with the Soul Shackles there as well. There's a lot of different options that need to be cleansed away, but having that first one able to be removed is a big deal, and Whoosh sorely lacking in that department. And honestly, this game, looking at this team comp that they were up against, Whoosh could have even taken the cleanse.
He could have. It feels like AD carries aren't willing to give up the 2v2 power of heal.
Yeah.
And the fact that it also augments your support, allows your support to play a bit more aggressively, knowing they're also going to get the heal as well. So even in situations where you feel like cleanse would be the optimal choice, AD carry is just too lane focused with their summons. I think that's the worst choice because they need to get through lane to get relevant items to do damage. It's a very early QSS from Thresh. Is that the right call? It does take away quite a lot of gold from what could have been a much faster Mikhail's, but he just feels like the utility that he's able to put out when he's alive is a relevant statistic in fights.
Yeah, well, I like what Lei's doing, of course. Early mobility boots, picking up interesting support items. MLXG not quite making it under the tunnel there. But of course, you know, a little bit Sync Dream-esque coming from the support role here of RNG.
So, I mean, just returning to your point, you mentioned that everyone can drop one CC. You might think, okay, but they've got 1 million, so that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It is a big deal. It is a very good solution in the situation where everyone's standing in mid lane and it's like, let's go 5v5 fight, whee! Like that won't work, right? That's the big thing that can't happen because of these QSSs and cleanse choices. So how do you work around that if you're LGD? You need flank wards. That's what we need to see is Acorn teleport flanking. He hasn't gone for home guard. He has actually gone for distortion, and Flash is very, very relevant on Cannon. But they need a ward for him to get a flank engage, just so that it's one of those situations where you can't run away from the CC because you've got Cannon coming from the back or from the side and Sejuani coming from the front. If they're going for linear engage or rushing down a wave, it's possible that RNG have enough tools to deal with them, so they need to really intelligently use the teleport from Acorn if they are going to get this team fight Wombo out.
Yeah, well, it's true. They've also got to make sure that they're not engaged on here. Of course, MLXG was looking for something around there. 8 seconds now on this Dragon before that one spawns. Nice little ward over the side, and RNG actually have to sweep that one. Thought they possibly could have managed to destroy that one in time, but the Dragon going to spawn now. This will be the third for RNG, and LGD looking to try and even it out with their potential second. Down at half health yet again as RNG sort of taking their foot off the pressure, but they are going to be able to lock that one down. Nice Dark Binding as Let Me comes through with the Mega Gnar. And LGD, they are just going to back away. So RNG locking down the third Dragon. That is definitely good, but of course losing that one means that it's not the fourth. It's not that little bit earlier as far as being able to win the game with that 5th Dragon win condition is concerned.
You must ask, who's doing the shot calling for this LGD team? No PYL there. During this whole time, you were wondering whether LGD were going to fight. Orianna was in base. She was just walking by. She only got to the Dragon as it was taken down. So either someone quite comfortably said, no worries, we'll give away this 3rd Dragon, or there was some poor shot calling and timings coming through, because you should not be in base if you're looking to contest Dragon.
Yeah, that's precisely it. Although Godby has now locked down the Void Staff. Almost half health on that Adder turret in the mid lane, but it looks like the inhibitor turret is going to be under siege here by RNG. Maybe a little bit of a rotational outplay by this side, because of course Jinx going to be doing so much damage to this turret. Acorn tries to teleport in, but it gets stopped because the tower's dead. This cannon's now going to go so far before he's going to get towards this one. The inhibitor going to fall, and RNG just a much better play. Takes the lantern out. MLXG is going to be safe, and LGD caught with their pants down.
And again, the word shot calling has to be invoked. Scattered shot calling from LGD. Very late teleport from Acorn. You're against a minigun form 3-item whoosh on Jinx. You're never going to be able to contest for that objective. RNG piling things on. They have a nice wave in bottom. They're trying to delay anyone from going to answer it. Do they have realistic Baron pressure? You look down their lineup and you have to say, not really.
No, and LGD, they're not making sort of the decision at all. I mean, the Baron, got started by a cute little Prey Seeker as TBQ is going to lock down the blue buff for Godby. MLXG wasn't even really concentrating on it, and Xiaohu not going to be too worried. Of course, Lulu not so mana-gated as the likes of an Orianna is.
such a massive minion wave. We're talking about 6 minion waves crashing together in the bottom lane. Not able to send anyone there. LGD caught, though.
Yeah, Godby in trouble. Super Mega Death Rocket sails past, but Akon sort of zoned away with his ult running. MLXG finds Imp, the Warrior Enchantment, doing some work there for this jungler, and LGD have to scatter. RNG somehow managing to turn it on, and as soon as Godby was down, there was no foot off that pressure.
And there was just no cohesion. The use of these very long ultimates.
That death sentence was incredible. Whoosh looking for it. That was the zap, and Xiaohu picks up the kill in the end. Whoosh's Jinx is fantastic here as another zap, not going to quite find it, but there's the death sentence. Lei locks it down. TBQ's dead, and so is another inhibitor. Akon wondering what's going on as far as his team's play is concerned, because he's hanging around in the base playing damage control. This is going to be a free Baron. And RNG, they've made this one work, but it's begging a lot of questions from LGD.
Yeah, I don't want to focus on the negative, but the team fighting cohesion from LGD has been awful, completely off the page. Orianna gets aggressed onto them. They kind of have Akon channel the ultimate. A defensive ultimate goes down from TBQ after everyone's dead. You need to layer these wombo combos down precisely or they do nothing, and the result was very healthy members to the point where they can get multiple kills, push down mid, and go back and take the Baron.
Yeah, and it's a 3-0-1 Rek'Sai here, 3-0-2 for Xiaohu on this Lulu. Very low kill game here for 35 minutes in, but RNG have just been playing this map so much better.
Well, I mean, to the point that Akon is 0-0-0.
Yeah.
He hasn't even seen an assist this game in 36 minutes.
And he's on one of the best teamfighting champions in the game.
And he was the one that was getting to these objectives, and he did secure one dragon that LGD has to show for themselves in terms of objectives, but 7-3 in total, 3-1 in dragons. Next dragon spawning soon, and of course a Baron too. RNG went for a rotational early game based comp. LGD went for a comp that should be really good in the late game. You asked the question, had they done enough? At the point you asked it, no, but now it feels like too many things have piled up for RNG. The gold lead's not quite there, but everything else, absolutely, completely squarely there for RNG to overtake this late game scaling LGD.
Yeah, and the minion waves now crashing into the Nexus here in the mid lane and the top lane. RNG just playing it out textbook, not actually thinking about letting any of it go to the RNG of this game. They're just going to be sieging up the bottom lane, getting things done that way. And these
they have 2 inhibitors down. There's nothing that LGD can do to contest these sort of objectives. Maybe the inner turret if they get the godliest of all Orianna ultimates, but even then.
And Godby, if anyone's going to be able to do it, it is this man, but is it too little too late?
These minions don't need a lot of help.
No, they are doing a whole lot of work. There's a couple of siege minions actually built up here as RNG gonna have to wait for the next one unless Let Me just wants to tank it up. He's got so much health now with that Warmog's armor as well as the Randuin's.
Baron buff duration still just over a third.
Yeah, there's a brilliant ult though. Akon flashing on top of Whoosh. Could be in trouble here. Pops the heal. Nice Zhonya's there from Akon though as the zap is going to go relatively wide. TBQ, now it's his turn. Whoosh kiting back beautifully as LGD still very healthy in the backline. But look at the damage from Whoosh. Now that he's not kiting, he's freely auto-attacking. And man, the double kill after all said and done. Godby not with anyone else left. And that is a very interesting teleport from Let Me, and Godby's going to have to escape. Xiaohu makes his way in there, picks up the kill as the Na pushes the Orianna back, and the Nexus turrets fall. RNG with a beautifully played game, but a lot of it's begging questions of LGD, but you can't take it away. This team has come together quite nicely.
Rotate around very, very smartly.
Yeah, it sort of brings to mind the likes of Faker, of course, a fantastic Lulu player in his own right, and I'm not saying that Xiaohu anything like Faker, but still, it's brilliant to see him utilizing that champion to such high effect. And Rek'Sai is going to be banned straight away, and I think that's really intelligent. MLXG was brilliant in the jungle.
And just coming back to defensive champions, now Lulu's seen some success. Morgana mid was a big success. Morgana mid and then Lulu earlier today for QG. Defensive mid laners seeing a resurgence this weekend.
Yeah, Doinby actually playing that mid Morgana quite effectively as well in the victories that QG managed to pick up. And look, Gragas is going to hit the bench here. Of course, MLXG played the Gragas 2 games in a row, now having his champion pool really stripped down. And we were mentioning before, no jungle focus whatsoever when it comes to the pick and ban phase, but look, now it's all about the jungle, and Vladimir going to be removed. Godby not going to be playing that one. That's an interesting ban. More of a throwaway, do you think, Papa Smithy?
It does feel like a bit of a throwaway. My guess this game is they're going to give up Azir and try and have Godby go full Kassadin. We know he can do it. He's the one that caused the resurgence in Kassadin play with his Rod of Ages into Zhonya's, into Athene's Unholy Glory.
Unholy Grail?
Unholy Grail. Close. Build that he really piloted for that 40% CDR hopping around a late game team fight build. I think that's what they want to do, is engineer that matchup. Cassiopeia's bans are the only real enticing option against the Azir is that Kassadin. So the first pick now makes a lot of sense. Flame's back in the lineup. I want to see him adjust that item, but we mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Go full team fight or go full damage. Do not go for the Sunfire Cape, because if they choose Hecarim, there's just no options against Hecarim when you have the Sunfire.
Yeah, and MLXG, if he picks up this Nunu, does Let Me need to lock in the Azir here for Xiaohu, because I just feel like Nunu Azir is just such a fantastic combination of champions.
I completely agree with this issue with them too. It's just, do you expect Godfrey to play the Azir? We don't see a lot of Azir coming through from Godfrey in general, so perhaps you just chance the fact that he will not lock it through. But you're right, now you suddenly have multiple people that you can give this Blood Boil to. Whatever AD carry you choose, and the Azir, like you mentioned, prime targets for Blood Boil.
Yeah, Godby as well has the option to go for the LeBlanc. Of course, Xiaohu, a fantastic LeBlanc player in his own right. So the, mid pool, I mean, does have Vladimir and Cassiopeia removed, but they're not exactly the standard bans here for the mid lane. Janna, considered here for Fan, has played it once before to varied success. And Imp, he's hopping on the Jinx.
Imp's Jinx was something they hid for the whole season, then played with such panache against Def in that final. Clearly capable of Jinx by insta-lock. Azir comes through.
Surprise, surprise.
As we were both speculating, they're going to leave their AD carry choice for last. Suddenly you go, is it going to be Vayne time? They might be considering a champion like that.
If there's anyone who's going to do it, it's Whoosh.
It'd be pretty daring to take it into Imp's Jinx, but I guess anything is possible in that particular regard. Maokai for a bit of more early game power. I think it's going to be the Kassadin. I think he's just going to go Kassadin here and go for the carry that he's done so many times. If you take it to the late game, Kassadin will get all the work done. Sure, they don't have huge wave clear, but Jinx does her fair share of wave clear with AoE crits in the late game. Gnar can get into Mega Gnar form and do some work as well. It's going to be LeBlanc or Kassadin to me. Or maybe it's time for Fizz.
Godby actually deciding to take the Fizz here. And we did see a lot of Fizz. Of course, Westor there from AHQ over at MSI was a brilliant Fizz player, really putting Fizz back into the champion rotation. But look, it's interesting. Godby didn't quite find success on it the last time he tried, but we'll see whether they can do it this time. You were saying that he has to get back on an assassin, and this is one way to do it.
There was no apology, plenty of apologies to Godby in that particular game. He played very well in lane.
He did, yeah.
They weren't able to get a victory out of the situation. Xiaohu actually played this Azir versus played Fizz into Azir against Dade's Azir and smashed Azir. It's a good matchup for Fizz, especially now that AP Fizz is the in vogue choice. They're looking for damage on their AD carry. It felt like it might be Vayne. This is Whoosh, of course. We shouldn't be surprised. And Vayne's locked in.
Yeah, we've seen the first success for Vayne today as well. We'll see whether RNG can sort of carry that momentum as far as whether or not the champion can actually carry momentum itself. But Vayne seeing success, Whoosh. If anyone's going to do it, it's this guy. He loves picking this champion.
And it's a really good team comp for Vayne.
And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Death Sentence not landing as soon as we enter the Rift here for LGD, taking on RNG. Game 2 for our third match of the evening. Let me just standing around checking out this ward as he dodges nimbly out of the way of a Sonic Wave. And RNG looking to try and get some deep vision down. Of course, everyone wanting to try and find out who's going to be lane swapping where.
Well, let's be real. Vayne really wants to know who's lane swapping where, because they've got a Maokai excellent in a 1v2, and they've got a Vayne that really doesn't want to lane against Jinx. Even though it's Jinx Janus, it's not a high-pressure support. He'd probably prefer to dodge this lane and show up with a Blade of the Ruined King and say, yep, kind of come Jinx hunting season.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. You just really want to try and, dodge out of the first 15 minutes of this game. Sort of no rush 15, please, is what you're going to be writing into all chat. And maybe what they do is, because no one lane swaps to the mid lane, maybe you put Thresh and Vayne into the mid, and say, yeah, I bet you weren't expecting that.
The Royal Club pre-Season 3 World Special, Twitch anti-mid every game.
Beautiful.
There's worse scenarios, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen it done before. I actually potentially love having a Blitzcrank there in the mid lane as well. You can steal away all the blue buffs over each side. No problem at all. Let me and MLXG, though, they're going to start the jungle. Followers Vayne is actually in the top side. So LGD didn't actually try and answer any sort of lane swap that came through there at all.
No, they're just accepting their fate in this particular regard. It continues the trend of every single game Flame plays, not getting to play Kennen and getting lane swapped on. It's 100% true in every situation, it feels like.
Oh my goodness.
Never gets a chance, and we get once again to notice that it's pretty sweet Chroma.
Yeah, it is a very sweet Chroma, as Godvy's actually taking a billion auto attacks here from Xiao, who's back on a Shurima champion, very comfortable, and we'll see whether he's got a little bit more practice on this Azir, and already Godby at half health, of course. Going to be chugging down that flask as best as he can, as TBQ is going to be taking down the blue buff on the opposite side of the map.
And LGD, what they've managed to engineer in this pick ban phase, good matchup in the mid. As you can see, not so good at the start of the level. That's why you see the flask and the potions coming through. So much poke going to come onto the melee champion that is the Fizz. But a lot of kill pressure level 6 onwards. And their most reliable way to win a game, they've tried to play the rotational AoE-focused Wombo team fights. That certainly didn't work the last game.
No.
Split pushing with a great 1v1 player like Godvy seems like a more reliable way for them to win. Almost engineered that situation game 1. They played the Fizz, the game 1 earlier this week. They played the Fizz. He was getting kills in lane against the Morgana. They rotated him, and then they lost Baron, and in general, the other lanes were losing. So that was a situation where that split push with Fizz, no teleports, wasn't going to work. If you avoid those situations, go even in other lanes, keep the vision strong around the big structures like the big neutrals like Baron and Dragon, just give Godby that chance to carry. Because so far, the other 3 strategies you've thrown out as a team haven't worked.
Yeah, and is it going to be TBQ picking up this Lee Sin in the jungle that's really going to help facilitate Godby making moves here in the mid lane? Is it going to be the fact that they're going to have that earlier power spike from the jungle, make sure that that is going to be in their control?
I think that's a really good way of surmising what they're going to do. They needed to have an early power spike jungler. Otherwise, you can see, if you leave things to their own devices, first 6 levels in mid are awful for the Fizz. He goes up for an auto attack, gets, what, 3, 4 Sand Soldier autos coming through.
You've seen that happen.
From Xiao, gets chunked out. He's going to really eat through these potions quickly. If the Lee Sin can get into mid, blow a flash, suddenly free kill level 6 onwards is going to be the case coming through, barring some shenanigans with the Emperor's Divide, always possible.
Yeah.
And then rotating into long lane. So the faster that you can clear some waves, the faster that you can push down some turrets, getting Fizz into a long lane is wonderful because he's so hard to track down. As an AP build, you're going to be maxing Playful Trickster first, so you have a lot of maneuverability. In a long lane, you've got nowhere to back away to, so of course the assassination potential is very good for the Fizz on whoever they send. This is, I think, the strategy that we're going to see. And if we do eventually see, say, Fizz split pushing against Maokai, that's another counter matchup for the Fizz. We saw Zatai last season rocking the Fizz versus Maokai matchup. So whoever they send to deal with the Fizz, if Fizz is snowballed, they just don't really have any good options to RNG.
No. I mean, we can talk about Godby this whole time, but I mean, Imp as well is going to be sitting on this Jinx. So if you want late game insurance after picking this sort of mid-game focused duo in the mid lane, then Jinx probably one of your best options. We saw Whoosh playing it to fantastic effect, and Imp now with a free lane on the Jinx, we're going to have an accelerated possible hyper carry in this game.
And Jinx synergizes really well with an assassin like Fizz, because Fizz, look, he's either going to burst people down or he's going to get a lot of damage onto people, and then suddenly the Super Mega Death Rocket will be likely to pick up that first passive activation and get excited on the Jinx. Suddenly you have mobility riding through on that comp, so any sort of deletion damage, it's missing health damage with an assassin that's good at 100 to 0, so there's a lot of synergy between the two. If Jinx enters a fight excited, it's just that much more likely that the second, third activation of that passive will come through, and she'll be able to skirt the outsides of a fight to complement the down and dirty work that she's expecting Fizz and Na to do.
Yeah, and we'll see whether, you know, the sub-support making his way in here, Fan trying to get some work done, but he does have the Monsoon in his arsenal here at the same time, so can sort of do some disengage work, really try and keep Imp safe on this Jinx is going to be doing the most work that he possibly can this game. Of course, the pause almost running out, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be back into this game ASAP, and I'm excited to see whether LGD can get their first win on the board.
It's a little bit less expectation when you get your support onto Janna. She really only has one job of disruption, whether it's restarting a team fight or just peeling for the Jinx. It's a little bit more straightforward. He tried to play some of those engaged supports and got manhandled a little bit in lane especially. So just play the Janna, play a bit more passively. Given the vertical lane that was enacted when the red side team went top lane with their dual wave, it gives a lot of dragon control to blue side and LGD. At least they'll get one dragon early in this game.
Yeah, 3.5 minutes. They are going to pick that one up, of course, with solo vision of that. RNG are going to be yelled at by the dragon as it does fall over, though, so they are going to have a relative timer as to when that one is going to be coming back up again, as another pause is going to be coming through, and Whoosh still here on the top side of the map, but RNG most definitely ready to protect him if he is going to get into any trouble.
He spent a little bit more time in lane, so actually has a 10 CS advantage with the freeze that he's created. Jinx had to leave lane a little bit to help with the dragon, so a little bit sad times, but she'll find the CS, don't worry.
I have a feeling Imp will find his way back into this lane, of course. He does tend to do it over and over again. A fantastic player, and we talk about both of these Samsung AD carries to come over from 2014. Deft has been getting a whole lot of limelight, but Imp also a brilliant player in his own right. And of course, the finals here in the LPL for the spring split were explosive based on that AD carry matchup.
I believe Imp started last season really, really well. If I was asked to rank AD carries after 3 weeks of the LPL spring, I would have had Imp at #1. And this is from someone who, personally, I just have never really rated Imp in the top 3 of AD carries, but I was really impressed with his performance at the start of the LPL spring. And he ended the split really, really well. Played excellently in playoffs. He had those 3 losses in a row as Kalista. Okay, doesn't seem to be working. Forces PYL to stay in his lane, and then suddenly went from 0-3 Kalista to 7-4 Kalista. 7-1 run was after those 0-3 and losses. So was really impressing that champion to the point where he was permanently banned in the finals by EDG. Imp maybe had those shaky times in the middle of the season, but was very, very impressive. Definitely top 3 AD carry in the spring. Def gets the plaudits because, A, his team won and then went on to win MSI, so I think he deserves the attention that he gets. But Imp's a world champion. Imp's won a lot of things in his career, and he's just now... He was 1 game away from winning the LPL Spring and thus getting to represent China at MSI.
Yeah, and that game itself was incredibly close at the same time. It was on a knife edge. Of course, Def did manage to pick up a pentakill to pick up the victory, but still, I mean, if that had gone the other way, of course, Jinx pretty capable of pentakills herself, but of course, look, didn't manage to happen just there. We'll see whether LGD can find some form, find their way back into a similar situation come the end of this split, but RNG at the moment definitely doing a decent job deterring LGD from making it there. And so far, sort of the newcomers meshing together has looked quite effective. And Xiaohu's just he's so impressive to me in the mid lane.
Xiaohu's a really smart player. He got outplayed by Dai. That was the surprise. That is, in a mechanical sense, he was outplayed by Vladimir in that Vladimir versus LeBlanc matchup. In game 1, his Lulu was very impressive. He was pressuring out Godv on one of his premier champions. Although it's a good matchup for Lulu, it's not usually as good as Xiao was able to demonstrate in game 1, so much credit needs to go to him. Now he's on his comfort champion. He's played so much Azir. He's really good at Azir to the point where he's one of the few players that before this Azir Cassiopeia meta came in, where both champions either need to be banned or first picked, Azir was always permanently banned against Xiao because he's so powerful on this champion, and they've engineered the prototypical protect the AD carry comp. Whoosh is on a champion he's got a lot of practice on. I would have preferred Kalista, but of course Kalista was banned during the picks and bans. It doesn't quite have the AoE of Kalista. But if you're not going to go Kog'Maw, Vayne is definitely a fine replacement in what is a very strong comp that has seen teams like EDG's success multiple times. Yeah,
and I was thinking about what they were going to do as far as having to pick a hyper carry that can scale alongside the likes of the Nunu here as well, considering the fact that they do have the Azir. Fantastic synergy there, but the Vayne, interesting hyper carry choice just because you don't necessarily have the range, but Whoosh, more than happy to play that champion. He played it so many times in situations that we questioned him for.
I believe he played it once in the regular season and then 5 times in a row against Snake. That was the surprise where it was like, why is he still locking in the Vayne? That was before Vayne started seeing a bit more play. And in general, it's been, what, 2nd or 3rd most played AD carry this weekend. Sivir, obviously, right up the top, almost 100% pick and ban. Vayne's top 3, which is a surprise. She has a decent laning matchup against Sivir, but there's so many other factors. You know, people talk about, you could say Vayne beats Sivir, and when you get Blade the Ruined King, absolutely it's a great matchup for Vayne, but it's just that Sivir has options, right? Sivir can push, Sivir can freeze, Sivir has burst damage, Sivir's better at taking turrets. There's a part in every laning phase where Vayne has kill pressure on Sivir, but both teams know that, and both teams know how to play around that. And the Sivir side is so much easier and straightforward because she has more strings in her bow to, I do 1,000,000 damage late in the game to one target. So that's why Sivir's always favored in that matchup. Now we're ended up with the Jinx versus Vayne matchup, although not really, because lane swaps are going to negate that. And still, if you try and 1v1 this matchup, it's super hard for Vayne. You have to be on point because you cannot eat the zap, you cannot eat the super mega death rocket with your very brittle base stats. You need to be on board with flash, and it needs to be obviously no supports around with pink wards. So execution heavy, perhaps to a fault for Whoosh.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for Whoosh, but of course loves to pick it up, loves to play it as much as he possibly can. But it's funny, the fact that, you know, you pick a Vayne and you want the 1v1 towards the mid game, but if you get a 1v1 situation against another one of these longer range AD carries in the early stages, things are not going to look so great for you whatsoever. But at the moment, Whoosh sitting up there, frozen lane, just picking up all of the farm that he wants. Is it going to be enough? Because are they going to be able to find a situation where Whoosh can get these sort of single target focused fights around this game?
I guess I don't know the answer to that question. Obviously, it will develop as the match comes through. I think it'll be difficult. The thing about Vayne is she's a really poor sieger as well, to pile on to all the other things we're mentioning when comparing her to champion like Sivir and Jinx to some degree. Of course, Jinx has the really long range in the rocket form to be very relevant in a sieging situation. So you might think, okay, have Vayne split push. And that's why the purple build came through. It was always about the Blade the Ruined King into the Youmuu's Ghost Blade. It's not going to work in this situation because who are they going to send against Jinx? Against the Vayne but Fizz, who has so many options to get the kill with her brittle low stats. Now that Fizz has been changed, you kind of have to hit the fish, so maybe there's a small amount of counterplay in trying to dodge that fish, but you're going to take Godv in a 1v1 sidewave matchup for the Vayne. So now you're going to have that awkward situation where they're going to try and siege, but they have two melee champions, fairly short range Thresh, Azir who's going to be more focused on setting up Sand Soldiers if there's ever an engage, and Vayne who really can't siege. So the strategic options for RNG, they're difficult. But they were difficult in Game 1 and they pulled them off. Can they pull it off in Game 2 as the camera stays longingly onto Flame?
I'm sorry. That was just hilarious. It distracted me a whole lot. I barely heard what you were just saying.
Eyes on the prize, Atlas.
Yeah, Flame just licking his lips there on the screen. Now having a giggle, I think has been informed that he was on the big screen in the studio there.
But a new animated GIF has been formed.
I really, really hope so. I'm going to need to have someone send me that because it is absolutely fantastic. That is the guy that has managed to take the photo of it on his phone, the video, so he can turn it into a GIF. Thank you very much. A man's a hero.
The pause keeps coming out. Of course, there hasn't been much of this game to comment on. The thing is, I called Vayne, and I wasn't even thinking about Whoosh. It was just, you look down, Callista's not available. You need a hyper carry to really justify this lineup, especially once Azir is picked. Azir works so well with a hyper carry because then you have to come onto Azir who has all his Sand Soldiers set up for that situation, has the Emperor's Divide to push you away, and the hyper carry has so much space to carry in the back. It's why the Callista comp in this particular situation for EDG looked so great. I guess kind of the issue will be, sieging will be difficult. The comp is strong, but I actually commend the Lee Sin pick because maybe they predicted the fact that it was going to be Vayne, because Lee Sin does ruin Vayne's day to some degree, whether it's kicking her out of position, which will be more difficult to do when you can't get over that Emperor's Divide. So maybe the Emperor's Divide will have to be used proactively rather than as reactively as might be optimal for the Azir. But the interaction between the Lee Sin and both these carries, whether it's Azir or Vayne, will be very interesting.
I want to actually see the Azir wall, the Emperor's Divide, used as a game of Pong. You know, someone hits a Sonic Wave and then, of course, tries to Resonating Strike his way in, but no, gets denied with a massive Azir wall. I think it'd be absolutely hilarious. Whoosh has shoved this wave up quite aggressively, now able to get a little bit of damage down onto this turret as TBQ might be in trouble. Steals away the puppy. Does MLXG and heads on back. No problem there at all. Oh, actually, Godv going for the all-in here. Has activated the W, doing a lot of extra auto-attack damage, but Xiaohu does manage to create some distance. Still has the barrier available, but not a whole lot of mana.
Yeah, the trade still, it looked like it was going to be in Godvy's advantage, but the damage on the backside is just massive coming through from Xiaohu. You're always guaranteed to take 3, 4 of those auto attacks on the backside of each trade, and until until TBQ can start impacting this mid lane, it's just sad times for Fizz.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for Godby, who's got no more potions left, no more flask stacks either, but Xiaohu a little bit low on the old mana himself, so not too many attack commands for these Sand Soldiers to come through, but Godby does eat another one. Gets slowed down just a little bit. Xiaohu now with a considerable CS advantage, although not anything to really write home about at this stage, as Whoosh now has yet another freeze on this top side of the map.
Yeah, Naranjana had managed to push it up most of the way, but the deep freeze is back on. Imp seems less worried about that, but as the wave pushes back, he has the option to freeze in bottom. We'll just continue the push.
Yeah, Flame and Fan with a pseudo 2v2 lane here with the Na and the Janna. Against the sort of early weakness of Vayne. Probably not too bad here at all, as Letme might be in a little bit of trouble here against Imp, but MLXG finds his way in. Imp wants to turn this one around, but Arcane Smash is there. The heal was used, and MLXG just picks up the kill, easy as you like, and Letme just baited that one beautifully.
Imp was just too far up the wave. I believe he was trying to get the deep freeze on, but there was so much space for MLXG to come in on Nunu. No defensive wards whatsoever, no blue side wards. In fact, there is not an LGD ward on the map.
Yeah, there's one RNG ward.
2.
That is the only vision.
2.
Where's the other one?
With one in the brush.
Oh, there's a magical one in the brush down the bottom there. Okay. So 3 wards now. Lay with some fantastic vision control this game. Managing to put down the last ward. There's, I guess, you know, you can't really beat 100% better ward coverage, though.
I believe it's infinite better wards.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Can't really do many percentages when it comes to dividing by 0.
I'm getting a lot of flashbacks to King Atlas.
Oh, dear. Don't do that, Papa Smithy. We're going to have a very upset color caster on this stream. Thankfully, King no longer really exists. It's Starhorn Royal King now. You're fine.
Starhorn Royal King?
Yeah.
Definitely not Starhorn Royal Club.
Oh, I love that picture. It was fantastic. Flame, he's got a shield. Fan is helping him out here in this lane as Imp's made his way back into the bottom side. Does have a pickaxe to his name as well as those boots. Has Godby again trying to get some damage down. Xiaohu now with the Emperor's Divide in order to create some issues for Godby. Chilling Smite and a Snowball as MLXG just moves his way past.
Successful Nunu gank.
Yep, beautiful stuff.
The freeze still relatively good on top, though. You can see with all these minions, the push will eventually come out. Imp has responded by going super aggressive once again. Has Super Mega Death Rocket, but not quite low enough health for Letme.
Yeah, probably wanted to have hit that zap in order to get some extra damage down there. But Letme, 25 CS to the 26 of Flame, but the fact that the kill has already gone down here means that the Maokai in pretty good stead here.
Yeah, equal in CS despite having no help. It's a pure 1v1 matchup. Obviously a lot of sustain coming through. The same was target nerf. The Sap Magic passive now only reaches the same value, I believe, at level 13, but still very, very sustainable. Cloth armor picked up as well. Out of potions, but going to get pressured in, miss some CS, but do just competitively in bot lane as the Maokai.
And again, Letme doing a bit of a drive-by, seeing what he can get away with here as the cloth armor has been picked up. MLXG trying to take his red buff. TBQ already has his. Might be in trouble. There's a resonating strike. Oh, the flash from MLXG, but TBQ going to flash over as well. The consume to come in. Xiaohu tries to get something done. The attack over the wall after the ultimate, but TBQ just going to walk out lazily and safeguard his way to his friend.
I think he should have probably just saved the ultimate after the death came through. Obviously, what he wanted to do was to push away from the Nunu. Wasn't able to do that. Suddenly now, there's a window for Godby to go for the 1v1.
Yeah, he can try and get some pressure here. Of course, only 7 CS behind. He's not too far off in that regard as well, but has the Ignite, has the Chum the Waters, but not quite going for anything just yet. That's a big minion wave, and Xiaohu's creating a lot of distance between himself and this Fizz.
Yeah, 100 to 0 with no items through a barrier. Not going to happen.
Yeah, through a barrier and that Chalice of Harmony as well. Bit of magic resist onto that item. Tough work. Letme, he's found Imp one more time as the Flame Chompers are there, but this time Fan and TBQ making their way around. There's eventual Maelstrom. Letme gonna flash away. And I believe he might be safe underneath this turret unless TBQ gets some serious Lee-Sinitis. Super Mega Death Rocket coming in as well. Twisted Advance, TBQ in a bit of trouble. Doesn't fall down apart from your monitor falling down. And TBQ locks down that kill.
They do pick up the kill. They commit a lot to it, Atlas, but they get the kill. My monitor is alive.
You're getting so excited, Papa Smithy. Oh, it's fantastic. Imp, though, managing to bait that one out quite nicely. Everything else was a ruse. Godby very, very low. Xiaohu picks up the kill. He is going to trade it. It's a 1-for-1 there in the mid lane. But my goodness, that was close.
Yeah, the multitude of dots coming through between the Ignite and the Seastone Trident was enough to take them down. That's not actually a pause for my monitor. It's back online.
Thank goodness. Don't worry. His monitor was all fine. All fine. Exciting stuff. But, man, I mean, the 1v1 sort of equalized there in the mid lane. Xiaohu being able to pick up the, I guess, is it a little bit more of a 1v1 if you're the first to die or the second to die? Sorry.
I mean, if it's not first blood, it's kind of not
I guess
really
it doesn't
relevant.
really matter, does it?
No, the experience is matched. Basically, everything's the same. Maybe in other MOBAs it'd be different, but in League of Legends, it's fine.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think pretty much anywhere, it's if you're getting 1-for-1, it's probably going to be okay. Of course, Xiaohu may have had a separate opportunity in order to keep that wave pushing. You know, maybe that was what it was. But MLXG did come around, and he's going to be able to shove this one into the turret after eating a turret shot himself. TBQ makes his way towards the top side. He gets a pink ward over that wall at the same time. So Imp switching this one around. RNG thinking about trying to grab their first dragon. This fan does have a pink ward there. Throws over a green into the pit at the same time. Notices the fact that RNG are doing this one. But with Consume and Smite, you have to think that MLXG probably going to be able to lock this one down relatively easily.
Yeah, I mean, with the no-no, the Consume Smite, as you mentioned, it's an easy dragon to pick up. It's an answering dragon, though, because LGD were able to pick the first one up at, what, 3 minutes 50 into the game.
Yeah,
so
very
two
true.
dragons roll down pretty quickly. And speaking of things coming down quickly, Imp as a Jinx with 2 AD items gets free time with a turret.
Yeah, there's a BF sword on top of that pickaxe now, like you mentioned, and Imp gets excited as that turret falls down, and that is going to be the second one here for LGD. The fast push is on for these guys, and we'll see whether they can continue it, because Xiaohu, I mean, he's probably not going to be losing his anytime soon unless the massive 4-man dive does come in.
And Xiaohu looking good himself, working towards the things. The windows for being assassinated by Fizz, at least in a 1v0 capacity, are starting to close. Morellonomicon is the first pickup for Fizz. Very aggressive choice against double AP that's coming through. Of course, Maokai, just about base values, but still quite a few hills of magic damage.
Oh, nice use of the Q and the E in order to get Xiaohu out of the way after that Playful Trickster was used. I believe the Urchin Strike wasn't even used there in order to try and get him in. Just trying to close the distance to get that Chum the Waters on, but that's an ultimate down.
Just excited for this game to move to the team fighting phase. We had a lot of breaks, so a lot of times to think about just how exciting it is to see a Vayne with all the peel that's afforded, and of course the Blood Boil that will be riding upon him in the late game. We've just got a lot of damage onto this turret. They want their first turret, but Flame and TBQ, they're going to delay it.
Yeah, lots of people with circles around them here in this bottom lane as Flame stacking the Hyper and the Silver Bolts are coming in, but no one actually going to take any dangerous damage. Fan wandering over a ward, but with 3 people, I don't think RNG are really going to be pushing too far onto this turret.
Not for now. Lee Sin's left the lane, but still plenty of wave clear. And of course, this Janna shield can come onto this turret, so plenty of options there. Fizz finally starts the swift push that we knew would occur at some point in the game. You would have thought maybe it would have been prompted by a Sheen or a Lichbane purchase, but just with Morellonomicon, happy to go and deal with Let Me, and Let Me has just gone back to buy a bit of armor, but certainly no magic resist to deal with this Fizz.
Yeah, TBQ actually does throw out the snowball onto, the Sonic Wave onto MLXG, but the flash did come through to save his life there. No one going to be kicked back. MLXG just going to clear out a ward and get out.
He's trying to engineer this Fizz versus Maokai matchup that we mentioned during the pregame.
Yeah.
When the split push gets going, Maokai's going to be deathly terrified of this. Only he's working towards a Frozen Heart with the build. No sign of the Spectre's Cow. 1,200 gold he doesn't have to spend at this present time. He was used to fighting against Narf. Suddenly finds the Fizz. Imp's happy to pick up farm in the mid lane unless RNG can really rotate around their teleport advantage in the top. This is going to be a very successful rotation for LGD.
Yeah, and also it's interesting that Let Me hasn't decided to go with anything for laning at all. No Catalyst in there, not going towards that Righteous Glory, and that's a lot of extra sustain here for Let Me, and I guess in this situation, wouldn't have really helped him out a lot anyway due to the fact that Godby probably just wants to fight him at all stages.
It's one of those situations where you get Catalyst if you can get away with it, if you have the right gold value, or if you're not feeling pressured in lane. You're not building the Rod of Ages anymore, so the Catalyst first, work out what item you're building, isn't really as much of a factor. Some players will still opt into that Rod of Ages, but certainly not been seen in the LPL so far in the summer split. So you're just happy to go back, buy some cost-effective mana and an armor in this situation, because that was the painful matchup against the Nah, who's just basically free hitting you as a ranged champion most of the laning phase. The Catalyst will still come later. We still expect to see a Righteous Glory, but for now, just unfortunate that there's no magic resist or health being built.
Yeah, Fan might be in trouble here as the death sentence was being looked at here by Lei, but doesn't get there. Whoosh is able to finish off this outer turret in the bottom side of the map. RNG down a couple thousand gold, but nothing to write home about here as Whoosh continues to push, and I thought that RNG might be able to get something exciting here. Of course, they are known to do that sometimes, but didn't happen there around that red buff.
The rotational play so far hasn't granted them any advantages. They have the teleport advantage by just using it to get farm onto Vayne. I mean, what LGD have basically done is that they have Jinx in the mid lane against Azir, who's built an Athene, so of course has no armor. They've got Fizz in the top lane against Maokai, who's built armor against a Fizz. As they've swapped very well. It's just a strategic hole, obviously, as they've got Elena with Ignite top against Elena with Teleport. Dragon's down. They've taken the bot turret due to the lack of pressure and the fact that they've had multiple members from the RNG side on bottom side. But now all they really can do is answer the pressure, and they're electing to send Whoosh and Lei against Godv. In a minute's time, though, this can be exploited by LGD. So these rotations so far seem to be helping LGD, and look at this.
Yeah, it looks to be exploited right now as Final Hour does come through, but Sonic Wave doesn't find the mark. Doesn't really matter as MLXG. He's going to die anyway. Flame picks that one up. Nice Lantern ride, but Lei is most definitely dead too. Godv picks up his second kill of the game. And although he's fallen down behind in farm, this might be the snowball the Fizz needs.
Yeah, really nice proactive moves played from LGD, and good timing as well. If they'd waited another 30 seconds, they might have paid for that rotation with their Dragon, but it's 2 free kills. It gets Fizz going in what will be a split push-centric Fizz build as far as we can tell, and they should be freshly shopped in time for this Dragon.
Yeah, and this outer turret didn't even fall down either, as Imp was able to clear out all the minions there, and Infinity Edge now on top of the Avarice Blade here for the Jinx. Now with a CS advantage, considering the fact that Whoosh has fallen down, and 0-1-0 so far for the Vayne. Of course, it isn't really the time where a Vayne's going to be strong, but it's not good news irrespective.
It's not really a big factor, as you mentioned. It's still very, very early into this game. They still have a team comp that is all about protecting the Vayne. The Vayne's free farm, so she's done at least half her job in that particular regard.
Godv might be in trouble. There's the Death Sentence as well. Whoosh looking for a possible condemn. But Godv able to create a lot of distance. Nice Howling Gale, and there's the Monsoon to get rid of the RNG members. Imp hanging around here as well as Zhao, who follows in on that Q. Nice playback. Godv, they're searching for him, but MLXG just going to get destroyed. LGD managing to turn this one around. Another nice death sentence, but the flash out there from Fan. TBQ tries to get in. Super Mega Death Rocket going to spell the end of Lei. Godv finds his way over the wall. There's the Blade of the Ruined King, though. Whoosh picks up a kill for himself. Imp flashes over the wall. LGD picking up all the kills. That's the ace. And LGD, they're going to transition into a Dragon, and that was so beautifully baited and played out over an extended series of events.
A really nice team fight there. MLXG just completely disregarding Fizz's damage. He'd just gone back, freshly shopped, got boots and a needlessly large rod, so exploded him, and then the Fizz mechanics to, on the downside of the playful, on the Trickster side of things, flash over the wall coming through from the Emperor's Divide and explode the Azir. Godv's good at Fizz, and he's putting it to good use, and the lane swapping and play that LGD have put forward has been a level above their strategy in the first 3 games of the LPL.
Yeah, I actually had no idea how Godv had managed to get over that Emperor's Divide, and then all of a sudden he was way in amongst everything. And then Whoosh, I mean, credit to him, managed to pick up the kill, but that's a 4-2-2 Fizz now, almost with the Zhonya's Hourglass completed, going to have those Boots of Lucidity very soon. And that's 40% CDR plus an ability to go untargetable on top of the fact that you have Playful Trickster. Man, this Fizz is going to be so frustrating for RNG to deal with.
And that's why you just keep up the split push. And this is so much more straightforward for LG to execute. They looked all at C trying to execute the Orianna, Cannon, Wombo combos with Sejuani in their previous game. Imp's going in, though.
Yeah, Xiaohu looking for something. There's the Emperor's Divide. Imp, though, gets excited. Only one Sun Turret hit. He is going to be able to lock down that kill. Flame even picking up an assist.
I think Xiaohu was just completely undone by the Youmuu's Ghostblade second. We're finally going to see a replay of this fight. This is after MLXG had already fallen down. The re-engage looks really possible when Lei goes down, but the flash, of course, Playful Trickster can't go over that terrain, but the flash as a reposition does work. EQ hits from Lee Sin onto the Vayne, so he goes down. Further damage comes down the back line. Really nice team fight coming through for LGD.
Yeah, LGD just playing it out really beautifully. And you did mention the Ghostblade. We didn't see it in the replay, but that is most definitely one of those sitting in the inventory of Imp. And I've never seen it before, but right then, Xiaohu was caught out.
I mean, the extra movement speed's a factor. Also, it makes the execution damage on your ultimate that much more relevant. No armor's been built up by Xiaohu. Now just goes back and buys a cloth armor. The ult is doing huge damage, even in close range in terms of the missing health. It's a different build. I kind of wondered if it would ever come through. TBQ's caught.
Yeah, MLXG, though, only able to throw out a snowball to answer the death sentence, so not really finding too much.
I mean, the answer is the question, though. Who's going to answer this Fizz?
Well, it seems like no one at this stage. I think that the members of RNG are sort of arguing in amongst one another, saying, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Someone else do it.
Maokai probably has to do it. Now has Catalyst for a bit of health, but certainly not in the right spot.
Oh, Imp in a whole lot of trouble, though. Whoosh picks up the kill. Here is MLXG. Decent ultimate. His fan taking a lot of damage. Another snowball to come down. Chum the Water's going to do a bit of damage to the Nunu, but it's not an optimal target. LGD dropping the ball just a bit as they pick up a whole bunch of things. RNG, can they get anything as far as an objective from this? The bottom lane's dead from LGD.
Yeah, the bottom lane's dead. They're going to push onto the mid lane. Is there any wave clear left from LGD? It's a Fizz comp, so honestly the answer is no. They need a minion wave to make this possible. No, the turret's solo. They will definitely get it. Flame backs away. No rage bar. Has teleport. Going to back.
Oh, TBQ. Nice use of the safeguard in order to get his way around, but MLXG flashes forward with the snowball. Condemn into the wall, though. Xiaohu picks it up with an attack command. And RNG, they're getting some picks around this map, trying to close this gold gap.
The Azir sec coming through from Xiaohu was wonderful. There's a reason that he gets so much respect on this champion. Comes with the picks and bans. No obvious Cassiopeia counter pick. Godv goes with the Fizz, and it's been mostly successful. But that's, honestly, a lot of Fizz getting ahead's been through the lane swaps rather than necessarily the 1v1 lane matchup.
Yeah, Xiaohu able to create some opportunities here for himself. Still has CS advantage. Zhonya's Hourglass is completed, though, from Godv. Doesn't quite have the Boots of Lucidity for the 100% or for 40% CDR. I was going to say 100% CDR, but 100% of the possible CDR that you can get on a champion. Godv is able to clear out this minion wave on the top side. And look, I mean, RNG haven't really been caught by this split push, that they haven't shown us an answer for it yet either.
I mean, LGD's answer to what is a very, very strong teamfight comp is just split push all day. Nara is obviously very comfortable in a split pushing role. We've already established that multiple members, at least 2, will be required to deal with Godv now that he has the Zhonya's completed and the CDR boots that you were mentioning for the 40% CDR. So multiple types of untargetability.
Oh, yeah.
Makes him a very, very slippery character. Finally actually returning to mid as Dragon's about to spawn. It feels like LGD have a lot of options. 5v5 fighting is still a possibility for them, but honestly a 5v5 is the only way for RNG to get back into this game. Just keep on the split push.
Yeah, now that Wushin does have that QSS completed, can potentially drop the fish if it does come down. Does that mean Woosh might be able to get into the split push scenario against the Fizz, or is he just too tricky? Is there too many abilities that he can do to kill this Vayne?
I think as in a pure 1v1 scenario, no. And it looks like he won't be able to fit in a Banshee Veil. It'll be a little bit more useful because you're still going to get so much damage down. Some of the tankier members can disregard Fizz damage. It's not so much miss the ultimate QW death like they used to be in previous iterations, now that a lot of the damage is around the amplification on the Fizz. But still the base stats from Vayne are too low, I think. There's still the potential with a sick outplay, but it'll be very, very difficult and risky to engineer such a split push.
Yeah, MLXG looking to try and get something happening here. The Nunu bot just wandering around, trudging around the jungle. Now, is warded up here just a little bit. Boomerang going to find him. Flame still just being annoying himself, but MLXG is going to be able to get that Grump. TBQ clearing out some minions, so Sun Turret still up there helping out Xiaohu.
2-1 Dragon spawns. RNG's comp much stronger when they're being aggressed on than when they're going aggressive, but looks like they've got no option. If they want to contest for this third Dragon, they'll have to go in aggressively.
Yeah, LGD, again, not exactly making a solid decision here as RNG are going to pick up the aggro from this Dragon. It hasn't decided to reset just yet, but oh my goodness, MLXG another time is able to steal away that Dragon. Xiaohu escaping as well using that cute little QE combo after the Sand Soldiers come out, and RNG, they'll just take the fourth Dragon and get out of there.
One of the easiest ways for RNG to win fights is to get the supremacy over Dragon, get towards that fifth, force LGD to fight on their terms, because they kite back well.
Oh my goodness, TBQ just goes on a merry ride here. Wushin picks up the kill as the ultimate does come down from MLXG. Decent Monsoon from Fan, but looks like RNG have managed to get the pick that they were looking for.
What will they turn it into? The Dragon's down, Baron looks risky even with Smite down, and their siege is pretty poor. So can they get enough poke damage to actually take down a turret?
We'll see what they can do. Zap was used just to try and do a little bit of extra damage to a single minion. Eye of the Storm is used to help with this turret, but Chum the Water's a little bit short on Godby's fingers there, so no fight going to happen.
Flame needs to open up enough space for the auto attacks to come out from Imp. He's the only person with AoE wave there. He doesn't do it.
Inner turret's going to fall down. Death Sentence on a Flame, but he's about to go into Mega Gnar. Super Mega Death Rocket comes in. MLXG very low.
Oh!
Look at the 5-man Gnar from Flame. No one's dead just yet, but Imp now able to get excited. Godby picks up the first kill. Imp gets Death Sentence, but that should have gone the other way around there as LGD clean up. Whoosh got the heck out, but LGD, they're going to be able to pick up a Baron.
And there's a reason why we were talking about Flame's Gnar. Sometimes he makes it all happen at the same time. 5-man Gnar. Very rarely seen. One's LGD, a super hard fight to execute 4v5.
That was so beautiful. Able to get the wallop onto 3 members there as well. And once that happens, that's the top laner alone securing the team fight. There was LGD, no other members need to do anything. Let's see it again.
Let's watch this replay. Remember, there is no TBQ during this fight. Everyone tries to peel for Whoosh, and thus everyone gets gnarred into the wall. You can see the shenanigans afterwards. Imp actually needs a Mikhails to stay healthy, but keeps fighting in just minigun range. What a play by Flame.
That was unbelievable. Also did so much damage. You've mentioned the sort of, I guess, base damages of the Wallop and the Gnar, but we saw it in full effect there. MLXG got torn apart by all of those abilities, and man, LGD now with the Baron in their back pocket, they'll be able to get the push on, and with a Jinx, pushing turrets is pretty easy.
I mean, it goes without being said that you shouldn't line up against a Gnar ultimate, but with this team comp against a Jinx, it's all about the first kill coming through, and then the Jinx will just hit all the get excited, get in range for all that AoE damage. And whether it's the Gnar ultimate or Fizz bursting someone down, it's all about the tanks getting tanky enough and soaking enough damage to actually stay alive. Because if the first kill comes through, LGD have shown very clearly that the second to fifth come fast afterwards.
They most certainly do. Imp going to get excited after taking down that Sun turret. Nice little zap onto MLXG, but this inner turret, it is not long for the world either. And can LGD actually break the base off this at the same time? There's a whole lot of minions, a siege minion there as well. Xiaohu trying to clear out the wave. As Mega Gnar is going to come in for Flame, but may not find too much off that one. Actually, the Immortal Flame here this game, 4-0-8. He's had a great game. And no Sunfire Cape this time, going for the team fight Gnar.
Absolutely, the build much more on point this game. Had the randoms for team fighting very early. Hex Trigger for a little bit of offensive choice, but definitely not spending 3,500 gold on either the Frozen Mallet or the Black Cleaver.
Yeah, exactly. Not even picking up that Sunfire Cape, which was an interesting choice his last game, as Imp is going to pop back into that minigun. They're going to take another inner turret. They've only taken one inner, of course. The Sun turrets aren't going to count on that front. Evened out the turrets, but 8,000 gold now the lead here for LGD. This is a much better game, a much better performance, and Godby has been brilliant on this, Fizz, able to really get things going towards that mid game. That first team fight, you have to think, probably helped snowball LGD into this position from the get-go.
They really need Maokai to teleport in early. If he comes in late, one kill comes through. It doesn't matter if Maokai's in a flank position. The first kill to the second to the third will make it super hard for a fight, but we're seeing a fight right now.
Yeah, MLXG does get broken out of his ultimate very quickly. TBQ not too bad on the tankiness front here as Godby trying to get some work done. There's a playful Trickster, so much AoE damage. Nice Sonya's there from the Fizz as Imp is starting to clean this one up. Xiaohu left alive. Imp just crits him as an afterthought. A triple kill comes through for the AD carry. Godby picks up a double. And that was just messy but beautiful.
And LGD have finally found the tonic for their wounds in the first 3 games. The split push they engineered. Godby in the top lane against Maokai. We already noted that Fizz vs Maokai was a very good matchup. They navigated around the early magic resist and armor purchases of Maokai and Azir really successfully, and they'll take the win.
Yep, 4-0 and 13 Flame ends it as well. A fantastic performance for the Nah player, and just narrowing people into the wall as the Nexus falls down 20-7. LGD